more scientific explanation, but I think that's the essence of it. So we knew that there's a good chance that there's going to be a feather there. You don't always get one, but we thought, well, we want to make sure we don't cut this wood so we ruin our chances of getting that, because if you've got one and you slice it right, you'll get two pieces and each one will have that feather. So as we went back and looked at the wood, and this is just to illustrate where we thought the feather was, we got this diagonal line. I cut it away with just got rid of the bark so you can see the line there, but here's the pith line on one end and here it is on the other line, on the other end at this angle. So we thought, well, the first thing we have to do is get rid of the pith, and then it wasn't going to affect our crotches, so we cut on an angle right down through there. So we ended up with these two pieces. Later we cut this one to get two roughly 6-inch slabs, so we could do bowl blanks out of these. And when we cut it open,
well, wait a minute. The village idiot, that's me, wanted to cut it like this. It's it's a feather. I wanted it, and I come in here and Dave said I was, out to lunch. So he started talking to me and we started studying, and over the course of a couple of days he changed the whole approach, of course. And he talked me into doing this. And I moaned the whole time. And this is what an expert really, we learned to get rid of the pith like he said. We want to maximize the best piece for the cut. That's what we've learned. And now these are the pieces.
so I think at this point when you're looking at a piece like this, you say, well, it's tapered a little bit, so should we just take two the same, or should we get one bigger and one smaller? And we opted to go one bigger and one smaller, and we'll probably be able to core each one of these and get two bowls instead of one. Maybe three, depending on the thickness, primarily. These others, so now we had this as one big piece, and we had this as one piece. Now we looked at it across the crotch, which meant there was a line right down there. The center axis of the feathers was going to be there. So we sliced down there, and there they are. And we got two really nice big pieces.
So here's his cutting plan, and this is what we've learned, like from Dale Larson and other people, is you preserve your best piece and you make sure you get that in your cutting plan. And this was our best piece, and so that's what Dave did. He preserved these pieces, and these were kind of add-ons. But when he did what he did was he enables to get all this other and really utilize the whole piece. It takes a while to think it through. But if you just go right through and you try to slice and just start cutting, which is what I do, instead of think.
What you used to do.
Oh, excuse me.
I still will.
Anyway, so Dave is a real thinker, and even this is the top, and this angle's in, so he structures his bowl to maximize the wood, even the angle cuts that we have. You don't make this your top, of course. So this will be his top. Everything he does, he thinks through. And it makes a big difference on what we get out of this. So,
and these little end pieces will be cut off, and we can use those for spindles or smaller hollow spheres or something.
That's just
boxes.
Beautiful, you guys.
So out of that one big chunk of wood, we'll get two, at least one that'll have a feather. The second one probably won't, because we'll be getting closer to the outside of the tree. But we'll at least get two bowls, good sized, some spindle pieces to work with. And I think each of these will give us 4 bowls.
So if you take a look at this one, when he was planning it out, of course, they're struggling as to what should be the top and the bottom. And we're still, I think this is the top. He's got it right. And then this is the bottom, and we drew this on the bottom. We said top. The top of this bowl, the bottom of this bowl. So it's not the
Because of the slope on this piece
Yes.
here. We would have cut that away anyhow.
So that enabled me to get out of this piece. Now me, I would have just gone for the kahuna bowl, okay? But when Dave did this and he drew this out, and he said this can be the top and then this can be the bottom, you can see how he maximized out the utilization of this wood. And so now I'm going to get 1, 2, maybe 3 bowls here, and maybe at least 2, maybe 3 out of here.
Because you're coring.
Instead of a big kahuna bowl when he's done coring it. So that's a big difference between 6 bowls and 1 big bowl. And my wife doesn't like anything bigger than a 13-inch, and I'm not really into marketing my product. So 13-inch would be just what we got here, and that works on my lathe very well too. So.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
When you have the feather and you've cut it, you've bisected that, and you've got the feather on both nice big slabs of that.
Yeah.
The feather, at least in my experience and from what I've learned from Dale, is the feather doesn't go deep all the way to kind of the outside of the bark.
Right.
So if you were going to put that as the top of your bowl, you would be cutting it all away. So it is oriented, I don't know if it, yes, so here we go. So Dale's, once you have a crotch in a piece, this is a half of a the pith runs through here. He always puts the bottom, the feather on the bottom of the bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't, it will be turned away. And he will, if it's a very pretty piece of wood that has a nice spectacular feather on it, he will actually put a waste block on, glue a waste block onto the piece, and then just turn that off after he's done, so that he doesn't cut any of that feather away.
Yeah, got it.
Or you can just make 5 nice platters.
Exactly. Well, one really nice platter, maybe a kind of good platter,
Oh,
and then
no,
others
no.
without the
I
bigger.
said you, I wasn't talking about me.
And actually, Dave explained exactly what you told me right there. He said, when you go in, you're going to lose the feather, like what we did here. So we've been aware of that, but it's very difficult on this particular piece. If the wood would have been a bigger diameter, because this was like 18 to 20 inch diameter, you're absolutely right. You know, we needed a tree maybe 24 to 30 inch diameter to do that. And I think Dale works on bigger wood. So, but this was a blowdown, and we didn't have a whole lot of selection process of what tree.
It's still, you still have some options even with that.
There's enough room there.
If you
get a 3-inch deep bowl
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, if you
with the feather on the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah.
put the feather on the bottom there, and
Shallow's
you
good for
make a
feather on the
top
bottom
tapered in,
because you'll see
so you make a you know, what's that
Sure.
called?
Okay, I'll take
Calabash.
that one. Yeah.
Calabash
I'll
shape.
take that.
So your wife's gonna get some nice 13-inch bowls.
That was a really good comment, thanks. Like, we agree 100%. So now,
So
we've got
talk
a
about the next
process
step.
here.
How would you mount that piece?
How would I what?
Mount it,
This one here?
or that one, any of them?
Well,
Just walk through the mounting process.
okay. Well, Dave and I have a little different process because he's an old
We're
timer.
about to lose the
And
stack.
I only use, faceplate mounting. And, you trim this if you got a bandsaw, but first of all, I cut it with a chainsaw and see how balanced I am. And I trim the edges with the chainsaw. And then Dave's got a super big bandsaw over here, so we'll bandsaw pretty good. And then I put a faceplate on that. I don't work without a faceplate on this heavy of wood. My lathe is only an 18-incher, and so I get real nervous, And so I put that on, and then I turn the bottom, and away I go. That's what, actually, Dave Williams taught that in bolt turning 101, I think. He should be the one that's explaining this.
You're doing fine, doing fine.
I think, like Bill said, we'll probably mount it on the other side.
Right.
So you want to put the
And this,
faceplate
so this will be the bottom of the bowl.
You don't want screw holes in the bottom of your bowl.
Yeah,
Okay,
so we trim this as flat as we can get it.
That's the other thing, just to comment on, when you're using face plates, you don't want to use 2-inch screws or anything.
no, he told me that too. The other thing is, I always have my ideas and then he listens to experts like what we just heard here, an expert on feathers, you know, this has the experience, and that's what he keeps saying too, is let's get other opinions. And when we were doing the walnut outside, just now cutting it up, he wanted Dave Williams' opinion. So it sure helps to get different views.
So how long of screws do you guys use for your face plates?
1 1/4.
Really?
Inch and a quarter. And
I always measure.
lots of holes.
Yeah.
I don't just put 3 screws in there.
I'd say it depends on the
Yeah, no, no.
wood, size of the bowl and how strong the wood is.
So it's 1 1/4 how thick can the bottom be?
I noticed in wood turning too, Roger, there's 2 different skill sets. There's, you know, beginning to intermediate, which is where I'm at, and then you got the advanced people that feel more comfortable at doing different things. And so I always try to stay within my comfort zone because it can be scary on a big heavy piece of wood. And so don't listen to what I necessarily say if you're an expert. If you're a beginner, still.
The reason I bring it up is, I know my first bowls, when I used a face plate, I had about 8 little spots on the bottom of the bowl. And it's just something that,
Well, if you use a faceplate, you need to allow a lot more thickness
in the bottom, yeah.
I only
We don't
have a
use the
4
green
inch.
velvet anymore.
So, Roger, I only have a 4-inch faceplate. Tom, do you want to do we thought we'd also core a bowl, and we were using the one-way system earlier. I think most of you had a chance to see that. But Tom brought a McNaughton system, which is a different approach.
The medieval torture tool.
Well, yeah,
Tree, meaning it had some rot in the tree, okay, in the base. And so when Dave saw this color and stuff, he gets real concerned. He says, holy cow, we've got to open this up and see what's really there to see whether it's really punky or not. But this coloration is beautiful, and it's going to be beautiful in myrtle wood. You don't see that if you cut a real fresh myrtle tree, you don't see a lot of the color that this one's going to have. So I felt really fortunate to have a little color, and it's not punky. We've had punky wood, and this is not punky to me, and it's a real opportunity to turn something out that's got a lot of character.
sure. When did it come down?
When did it come down? With the tree, it fell down in the windstorm that we had about, what, a month ago or so? That big windstorm out here? It came up the coast
Yeah.
and it knocked this tree down.
There's one thing about blow down trees. A lot of times when they come down, they take a real shock as they hit the ground. And that can lead to all kinds of linear cracks that go from one end of the log to the other. So as you're as you cut them up, look for ring shake and checks.
Yes.
And
When this hit the ground, it was cushioned. It hit a nice fence from a cattle yard, and it got cushioned, and the rancher was not happy with that fall, and he that's who called us, and he's a rancher, and it kind of got cushioned in the fall. Although it was kind of one of those that just kind of, you know, split it off, so it wasn't like a real hard fall, and part of it was really downhill too. A lot of things go into play, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Faith.
Why don't you explain ring shake?
How do you explain ring shake?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Ring shake happens when you get shear going on in the log. As it goes over, it's going to have a lot of compression on this side, and it's going to have a lot of tension on this side, and that makes the layers between the grain slide along each other. And what they'll do is they'll slide along each other around the rings. And so basically you've got, sometimes you've got this much in the center, a lot of your favorite stuff for hanging onto these blanks, for instance, and that'll be solid, but all around it will be loose. If you put it on the lathe without taking that into account, you're going to have some cordwood going through the air before very long, and you don't want to do that.
How do you identify it?
How do you identify it? the first cross cut you make, start looking for concentric cracks in the log.
So there'll be actual cracks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Some woods are more prone to it than others.
Yeah.
Black locust is probably,
Yeah.
Cottonwood.
yeah, black locust is the worst one that I've run into. But
Aspen, they're all really prone to that.
You get a little bit of it with oak. I've seen it in walnut. Big leaf maple, if you've got long, straight grain stuff without a lot of knots in it, sometimes will give you a ring shake.
While we're talking about this too, this is what you guys taught me, Roger. Okay, so I put the moisture meter on this, and it's just about 28 to 30% moisture. That means that if I cut it on, you know, green cut it, which I will, turn it green. You guys have taught me 1.5 inches takes about a year to dry. So on smaller bowls, about 1 inch, I'll get it dry, and we're trying to shoot for 11%, okay, to fine turn this. And so I had a piece of myrtle, and I measured it, and it was just about 30%. 4 months later, I measured it, and it turns out to be 20%. So you guys might know what you're talking about here, you know, I do listen, and, you know, I don't expect a finished product out of some of this for another year. I just thought I'd comment on that too.
The Myrtle blanks out there tested around 30%, 30 to
maybe
35.
a little higher now. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a high value blank, don't worry about how long it takes to get where it's got to go.
Yeah.
It has a mind of its own, and it'll make a better bowl if you give it time for that.
Sure, the longer you wait, the better off.
Yeah.
We won't argue with that. But sometimes we get a little excited like me and we can't wait. So
Well,
if I
do that with your
make
cheap wood.
a hard weight point, it makes it a little bit more tolerable. But I might sneak in there 14, 15%. Just don't, you know.
or you can try the alcohol dehydration. That does work.
Oh, you can
Alcohol?
microwave, you can do a lot of things, but
Yeah,
you're,
can't vouch for the microwave.
you're talking about incremental gains for a
Yeah.
fair amount of effort.
But you do want to process the wood as soon as you can.
Yep. You want to rough it down to your 1.5 inch wall thickness right away.
Yeah, that's what we.
So earlier, I don't know if some of you saw, we cored a piece of steve rod, and I said, we better get wax on there right now. So these are cut to about 10% thickness for the diameter, 10% of the diameter for the wall thickness, to give it room to move, and it will oblong. And one of the reasons for thickness is you got to make it round again when it is dry. And if you cut it too thin here, you won't be able to make it round.
You'll have a wind bowl.
The way it is,
Yeah.
or it'll go apart.
If you don't have a moisture meter in order to watch it go down and know when it's leveled off, you can weigh it when you're starting down and just plot the chart. When it levels off and doesn't get between measurings, when it isn't losing any more weight, you've reached whatever the ambient temperature is. In Southern California, we were headed for 5 or 6%,
Yeah. Arizona.
4%.
Up here, I think I get 10, maybe
Yeah.
13 is
12,
good enough.
10, 12. I figure it's dry for the Pacific Northwest.
When I go down to Phoenix, I take the wood that I call dry here.
Yeah.
And after one day, I got cracks in it.
Yeah.
But I bring it back and it all heals up.
So Dave, talk about how you what you do when you seal that bowl.
Oh,
I don't, Dave, are you gonna do a coring demo?
Tom's gonna do it. We're gonna.
You want me to set up to do that?
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay.
So we're using anchor seal. The idea is to cut at least the end grain. Steve did the whole thing, and that's fine. It slows the drying down even a little bit more, but the critical thing is to get the end grain, which you can see here, inside and outside. And then the moisture takes a lot longer for it to go through the sidewalls of the fibers than it does to go out through the ends of the fibers. So that's the idea behind it. If the grain is, if it's a burl or if the grain is real twisty, turny, I often just coat the whole thing because it's hard to know where the end grain is.
So I think the other thing is to make sure there's no sharp edges.
Yeah, Steve's gonna, I did on the bigger, on the master, round these two edges. A sharp edge means the wood will dry faster and it'll crack faster. So you want to round this, I like a 1/4 inch radius, something like that, both inside and outside. And we did do it on the bigger bowl. He'll do that on this one when he gets home.
Around the edge of the tendon and the shoulder too.
Yeah, I
Because
did
a lot
that
of
around
times
this
when
little
it
bit.
moves, if
Yeah.
it's a pressurizer there, we can correct
Yeah,
it.
I always just cut the little corner off of the tenon for that reason, and also so it doesn't catch inside the jaws of the chuck. So that's,
So maybe comment on the size of the tenon, because the tenon's also going to go non-centric.
well, the tenon on the, typically I use 5-inch jaws on my chuck when I'm doing the coring. You get a lot more torque going into the tenon when you're coring. You got, in that case, a tenon that's about 4 inches, and I'd make them 3/8 deep, thereabouts. And I run the lathe at about 250 to 300, maybe 350 when I'm coring. Wet wood is harder to go fast, so, because I don't know if you noticed the steam that was coming off this piece when we were cutting it. It was soaking wet, so it binds up faster, the wood gets sticky, and just have to be patient. So tenon size, because you're going at low speed and you're really reefing on that bar sometimes, you need a strong tenon. So I go to my 5-inch jaws to do the tenons, and then
But the important thing to remember is that your tenon's going to go out around. So,
Yeah.
you know, whatever your target size,
Yeah.
make sure you got enough wood there to get it round again.
this,
Make sure you leave the center point
Yeah.
to be your reference.
In anything you do turning, don't lose your center point.
Because that's the way you're gonna re-round the tin.
but there is a cool little tool if you forget. You can drop it right into your chuck as long as the wood is in the chuck, and just mark it at the perfect center. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna buy one of those.
Yeah.
If your memory is like mine, it'll be handy. Okay. So,
The thought I had a minute ago, if you're stacking your corings, it's probably a no-no unless you fill the bottom one with a bunch of shavings to leave you space between the two corings. Because as they change shape, you can get a pair of vice jaws that go this way on your next little bowl. So
when you're drying them.
yeah. So, and then I usually I bury mine in chips for a couple of weeks, because the fastest transpiration of moisture is early on.
Okay, you're live.
My name's Tom Willing. I've been a member of the club since the late 90s. I did my first turning when I was about 10, and there have been real long spells in there in between, so I sort of hew to the notion that an expert is a drip under pressure, and so I've learned a lot about turning in my time and made a lot of mistakes, and I'm enjoying sort of paying it forward by doing things like this. I'm represented in several galleries in the area, so I sell a lot of things, and basically have a good time, and I really like this wood turning community. A bunch of really great people in it who've been really good to me, and I try to pay that back, so that's me. McNaughton uses an interchangeable handle with a hex key and a hex heads, what do you call those set screws, to hold the tool in there. There are several different sizes, 3 to be precise. This is the largest one. I always use the largest tool that I can. The weight makes it cut more evenly, it's stronger, and it just feels more secure to me to do that. So I'm going to use the heaviest tool I can on this one. Now, because it's shallow.
So Tom, are you going to start with the biggest bowl or the smallest bowl?
That's where I'm going here.
Okay.
Okay. This is a fairly shallow bowl, so we're not going to get a lot of bowls out of it. I think I might be able to get 2 corings out of it. You always start with a smaller one, because if you start with a big one, then you only get 2 pieces. You only get,
That's fine.
start on the outside, you core it once, and you could theoretically get it fixed again, but it's a lot of bother if you want to only fix it once, start with the smallest coring first. And that'll take a ring bowl out of the middle. You know, it'll be this big in diameter. And if some of you have taken bowl turning classes, you may even have started with one of my corings, because I bring bags up out here for the little ones all the time. And Dale Larson also does that. So, but I'm going to go for because of the depth, I think I'll only go for 3. Part of what you're up against with this tool that you aren't up against with the one-way coring setup is the one-way sort of defines the shape of the bowl, the profile of the bowl. And so if you've got a shallow piece like this and you use the one-way set curve, you're going to go through the bottom if you start out here, and you don't want to do that. With this guy, because they have different profiles, all the way down to the little set. I don't have the little set, but the little set has got little tiny guys that are like that. They're sort of the backside of a hollow form turning job. The other thing they provide is this guy, so that you can make a straight cut. And this is great because what about all these chips out here that you have to cut off? Spend the time cutting them off. You can set this up to take a ring off the back with all that waste that then turns into a round picture frame, a clock face, any number of things like that. I've done both of those using that back piece. And
Can you go over that one more time? I'm not sure I caught that.
okay, yes. I'm going to set this guy up a little more here. I won't tighten these in way tight, so just because. Okay. Now, you can see the 3 notches in the gate, and there's one for the heavy tool. The heavy tools are a lot thicker, and so that gate has to be a little deeper. I find that the cutting edge needs to be just a frog's hair high over the axis. If you're below, it tends to bind up and it'll catch. And so if you want a smooth, easy cut, just a skosh above. Okay, so, and I judge that by, how am I going to do here? Look at that. Don't let me forget that I did not fasten that in there tight.
Are all
So
the
now-
tools, the tip to the shank, the same height, so you don't have to re-center each time?
Right, the three different tools that I have that are the big ones that go in the deep gate are all the same depth,
Okay.
this thickness.
Yeah, so I mean, if you center this tip, all the other tips will be the same center?
Yeah, pretty close. I've seen them where they aren't, you have to adjust them, but you just do that here in this one. Okay, so if I've got this guy in the round and he's a squared off round block, I bring the tool rest out here, and so now what I can do is I can make this cut go straight across the back, and that will take out this triangle right there. Maybe I can do, if I go in that way, I've got that negative space under my hand is a ring that you take off, and it drops off right onto the chuck, and you stop the lathe and dismount the block up front and take it out of your way. So that's that. So I don't want that one in there. And you can see there's the difference in thickness between the medium and the large. You got to train your eye to use this tool. And you want to think about where it's going to enter the profile. Get this guy out of the way. So I'm going to hold it up here. And if this is my starting point, I'll eyeball that. And right now, okay, so I could take my first bowl out of there with this knife with no problem. And it would leave me a fairly pleasant profile and minimize the waste on the inside of the big bowl. This one, it's a little flatter. I can make a shallower bowl and start a little farther out. So let's see what happens if I do that. I think this is the one I want to use.
For all three bowls? Look for the first and second?
Yeah, I think you can definitely change it between each bowl. So for the first one, definitely we'll do this one. And we'll see if I get in there and find a bunch of stuff that is no good, and I'm just going to waste it away anyway, then I'll only make two. You never know quite what you'll find.
Can I ask, is that curve arc of a circle or more of a catenary, or what is it?
Actually, I think it is a chord.
Okay.
So, but because it's not captive, you can adjust things as you go. And I'll show you about that too. Okay. Something I find with putting these set screws down, it's a good idea to do the outer one first. Otherwise, what you can do is get the tool in there cockeyed, pinch it in the back, and it's going to pop loose with you if you get a catch. So always do the outer one first. And that applies to, you know, all the D-Way tools, all the handles that use two set screws. Good idea to check them both.
So is that the set screw that's closest to you, the outer one?
I do this one first, and then I do this one. And the reason for that is, you can see the shape of the tool. If you put it down so that this is coming up against the wall like that, this set screw is not going to be tight, no matter how much you tighten it down. As soon as it gets some vibration going, it's going to back off, and then the blade can do that. And that's more excitement than I want. So, you probably figured out I'm a believer in lubrication. There we go. Okay. So now, I adjusted this guy for the other tool, and you can see I'm low. So I've got to fix that. Good. Just a squish. Okay, that's pretty good. One thing you will experience with this tool, I don't know if the one-way tool does this or not. Where's Dave? Oh, he's over there. When you're going, especially as you get the cut deeper, this tool will self-feed. The wood will actually pull it into itself. And so you don't want to be pushing on it because it'll change from taking pressure to drawing it in on its own really quick. So once I get going, I just let the tool do the work. And so somebody said something about your shoulders being all beaten up at the end of the day working with this tool. That tells me the turner's probably trying to do the work instead of letting the tool do the work for him. So, at home, I have one of those cages that fit right here and drops over there. And when I've got a 50, 60, 70 pound block of wood on there, I use that thing. Because you never know where you're going to have a flaw in the wood that will fail on you, and pretty soon you've got a chunk of wood moving really fast headed for your lap or your face or wherever. So you'll see me staying out of the line of fire on this one. Alright, lathe speeds. I hardly ever go faster than about 300. The bigger the piece, the slower you go. As you get down towards the end, you'll see that I slow it down to 250, 225, something like that. Because you're at a point where it might pop off. They often do. I'm going to try to do this one so that I remove it, and I'll show you how I do that if I'm successful. I found out at 7:30 this morning that I was going to be doing this, so I didn't have a chance to think it through. So if I'm sitting here looking at the back of my head, that's what I'm doing, is trying to remember that I caught everything. And Roger is a great guy for saying, Tom? So thank you for doing that.
Sorry, what kind of wood is that?
What kind of wood is this?
Yeah.
It's myrtle,
Oh,
and
is it?
it blew down here in that last windstorm.
Oh, okay. This is the.
It's part of this.
Truck down there? And you know, this has got some of that feather grain that he's
It's not
talking
part
about.
of that. It's part of the same tree, though.
It is part of the same tree. Different crotch, though. This looks like it's got some feather. This came from nearby a crotch.
Yes. It
Yeah.
was the next one down from this piece.
And so you'll see why turners like coring in a minute here, I think. Okay, so now you can see that this tool tapers here. You want to start with the tool in the gate so that that high point is completely in the gate. Does that make sense? Otherwise, if it's out here, it can get really loose. As you bring it in, it's much tighter and much more secure. Okay, so now, well, I think we're going to get 3 bowls out of this. Let's just be sure of that. I've seen, this is another, I've seen guys, you can see I've got the gate post secured. I can't rotate that in the tool rest, in the banjo. And I've seen guys do it with the gate rest loose, which you can do by backing off on a set screw here. I don't like that. I like it more secure than that. Part of it is that you can change the cut as you go without knowing it's happening until it's too late. So if I want to change my angle of approach or something like that, I'll stop and reset using the banjo, not the post. Okay. This clear. Okay, this one starts to wobble about 250. 220. The other thing I didn't check was always use your lowest gear. It gives you the highest torque and you don't need the speed. Okay. Good. Alright, all of this looking at the back of my head time is just going through my mental checklist. It's a practice I highly recommend. Alright.
I just want one picture.
You ready? I hope you guys that are right in here are watching. I don't think this is a heavy enough piece that it'll probably hit the floor before it hits you, so just be ready to dance. Okay. It really helps to have a hand here, but there are lots of little pinch points, so you need to watch that part. See how I just ease it in. And I'm cutting with the back side just a little bit. It's just like a gouge. It cuts much better if it's up against the shoulder. And another thing I do is this can be as sharp as a meat slicer if you don't dull that edge a little bit, and that's why I was wiggling it back and forth a little. And I want to do that until the cutter is completely buried in the wood. Ooch up on the outside of the cut first. Just make a little bit of contact there. Sheet metal around.
If you're not pushing at that point, what forces of pressure are you applying?
If I'm not pushing here?
Yeah, you said after you got going, you would just let it draw itself. What are you doing?
It'll start to draw itself when you get, this one might start to draw pretty soon.
Are you steering it up, down, in, out?
I'm always keeping it up against the hook here. Because if you let it drop down, then it catches and pops up and down. So it's a good idea to make sure you've got good contact here. I don't know what that noise is. And I just violated my own rule, didn't I? Yeah. I'm glad I noticed before you did. And you see I'm keeping the handle blade up against this guy. And I can give it more pressure, but I don't need to. draw itself now.
That's what.
No, it's okay. Yeah, if it's got that amount of play in it, it'll make a heck of a buzz when you start to throw harmonics into the deal. Okay. Sometimes you have to clear the cutter. So now I'm starting to get in there a little bit, and if this guy is loose, you can just pop it with the heel of your hand and it pops right off right across the grain. You want to be fairly well in there. The idea is to get it to that point and disconnect it that way rather than disconnect it with the tool and the lathe spinning. Okay. Let's see, what was the other thing I wanted to say? Oh, clearing chips. What I find is if I don't get too anxious and impatient, I don't have to clear the chips anything like as much as you would think. The tool and the spinning wood will clear the chips for you. And the trick is, if you're making chips too fast for them to do their work, then it blocks up and then you get a jam. And if you jam the cutter in there, it's a lot of work to get it out without destroying this this first bowl that you're, or whatever bowl you're pouring. Usually doesn't destroy the outside. Okay, and then the last thing, you can see I've gotten myself about an inch between the high point and the gate. So I'm going to seat the tool all the way to the bottom of the groove. And I'm going to make sure that I can hold that line of cut and just move the gate up so that I've moved that steady point as far forward as I can get it. Okay. Sometimes you have to restart the machine with the tool in the cut. For instance, in this case, that's what I'm up against, especially with a small coring. So I want to make sure I've got good, clear, free motion there. If I've got that, make sure I'm up against here, because this is one of the classic places to have a catch when you get started. Let's get up to speed. So I got to paying attention to the sound it was making, and we may be doing a different profile bowl here, huh? I lucked out with that one.
How often do you have to sharpen these tools?
I've got CBN wheels at home, and I just touch it at the beginning of the session, and I can get, I can probably get maybe 10 bowls, you know, from this size up to the big one. That guy will make a $20 bowl in a craft sale. And so I paid $15 for this a minute ago. Don said he was going to give it to me. He's outside there. So that's the economics. So I'll go 20, 30, 50, 200 out of a 4-bowl block like that. Or something, you know, that's representative. This one, this is why you want to let it go. You want to pop it loose, because sometimes those rip down in there, but we'll be all right. So, you know, pass that around, you can do that. And then all I have to do is set up another cut.
What's the name of that tool again?
I'm sorry?
The name of the system? The name of that tool.
Oh, the system is McNaughton. They call it the McNaughton Center Saver, because it saves the center of the...
Was it on the market before or after one way?
You know, I don't have an answer to that. It's been around a long time.
I have
Yeah.
a sense it was first.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the two that follow, one from woodcut and one way, their attempt was to solve the human problem of the McNaughton. They decide the bowl rather than you decide the
My
bowl.
impression of the McNaughton guy is that he's a pretty tough and rumble tool maker, wood guy, and he understands how stuff like this works from that perspective. And my impression with the one-way guys is that they have all the answers for folks who don't have them.
We know a better way.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had some interesting discussions with their engineers about some things because of that. They didn't think I knew anything.
You're turning that green.
Yes.
And it's not, so how do you mount it to give it the second turning? The bowls that you pour out, how do you remount those?
I do it between centers. Where'd my piece go?
You need to sniff it over there.
Yeah.
Don't sniff it too much.
So I'll shape this flat and get it as close as I can to round, and at right angles to the plane, and then I'll come at it with a point on a live center this way, and I'll hold, sometimes I'll even drive a spur center into this side, or a step center for a little piece like this is fine. And then I've got them this way, and I can make myself a spigot to grab it with a chuck on the heads, on the tailstock side, and then I just flip it, and then I can hollow it. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else want to look at this? So now I got to position my next cut. And let's see if I can make that happen. Okay, so now, where's Don? I saw him here a second ago. And then he left again. Oh, there he is. Hey, Don. I got a question for you. What do you want to do with this bowl right here? You got 2 bowls here. What do you want to do with this one?
What do you mean? I'm sorry, I don't know what the question really is.
Well, I'm about to make 2 bowls out of this block of wood.
Right.
Do you want to make this one with a real wide rim on it, like a Jorgensen bowl or something like that?
Oh yeah, one of those. They say that word again?
Jorgensen.
I want to make a Jensen or something
The
like that.
Danish, he was one of the guys who got the mid-century modern movement going. And you know, like a lot of those movements, the mid-century modern movement got corrupted along the way, but his stuff is choice. So,
I really like it. I learned that from Dave Williams. When you make a lip and you go back under that lip, that's beautiful.
okay, so I will do that. So you can see, you saw earlier this morning, there's lots of thinking through that happens as you go. You know, we got this out of here and that's all pretty nice and clear. I don't think we're going to get any feather. I think all the feather is over here.
So for the next bowl, you're going to start further out. And
I'm going to start out
how
here.
do you visualize the depth that you need to go to get that bottom thickness?
I'm eyeballing it.
Okay.
So my cut's going to start here, so I line up the tool right there and I look where the center is going to happen.
Oh, okay.
And so if you wanted to see what I'm doing there. Okay, so I'm eyeballing it that way.
Okay, I got you.
That makes sense? Okay. And I see that we've got a little bit of a pith crack going here, which is going to make this bowl smaller. So it's not a perfect blank. Anybody ever seen a perfect blank?
Hold it on my face.
Look on your
They always start out perfect. They never end up well.
I like that. I'm waiting for the definition.
I think it was
I heard
a
somebody
visual-
say something about
it was
definitions
a
of
visual.
insanity.
Yeah, it was a visual joke.
Oh, it was a visual, okay. All right.
You're right next to that definition, Tom, but I don't want to say it.
Dang, I lost that round, didn't I? Okay. So now, my feed rate's going to be faster because I'm in the larger diameter. Let's see.
So I couldn't tell, did you sort of split the difference, or do you?
No, I'm going to start this cut right down in that notch there. And that's because he wants a wide rim on this bowl here.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see how we do.
This is the one I wanted to see was this
Okay, so now I stopped to look here because it looks like I might make myself a funnel. And so I'm going to change my tool rest a little bit and bring it up to the shoulder on the tool. But I'm also going to change my approach a little bit. And when I do that, sometimes, as in this case I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to recut my slot just a little bit.
That's part of why people buy them, and then they realize the learning curve. And then they sell them for cheap. But you got to be careful buying them used because half the time there's one in there.
Okay, so this adjustment is just a repeat of that last adjustment I made. I'm kind of sneaking away from the bottom here a little bit.
You're going further back than you want?
Right. So I'm taking more out of this piece and leaving more on this piece.
And the adjustment reverses that.
The adjustment is what?
Reverses that. Now you're coming more towards the smaller ball.
No, I did a little bit to begin with, and now I'm doing a little more because I don't think I did quite enough. Sometimes that happens.
So what do you think happened?
Well, it's at that transition point where it starts to feed itself, and I may have had a little too much pressure on there, and it just took a bigger bite than it could handle. So when I go back in again, which I'm going to do. The other thing that can make it catch is if it just gets a bunch of shavings that bind up and catch between the tool and the wood that's going around. That'll stop it.
Anyway, we were all marveling at Kevin's hands because he's just so
Tom, talk a little bit about why once you got down almost to the end, you came back and started taking more wood off.
Try that again.
So explain why when you got your first cut almost to the end, you came back and started taking more wood off.
Yeah, I was moving the cut just a little closer to the bottom of the bowl, to the bottom of the blank.
Was that to clear out more space, or was it a design thing?
And to change the angle a little bit. See, this guy, if you keep going, here's the bottom of your bowl. If you keep going this way, it's going to start to make a hole in the bottom of the bowl, in the bottom of the outer piece.
So you had to come back and readjust it.
I came back to readjust.
And you took more wood out of the
main part of the
the
blank.
third bowl,
Yeah.
not the second bowl.
Right, I'm trying to leave a little more on the second bowl and take a little more off the third bowl.
Are you riding the edge of that cut at all, or trying to keep in the middle?
The center point's going to be at center.
The center point's going to be where the cut goes.
Yeah.
Because it's averaging the two bevels. Okay, so it'll follow the point. If you don't keep that point when you're grinding, if you don't keep that point fairly close to the center of this curve, then you create problems for yourself too. All right. And this one is taking a little longer because I'm only going 220 instead of 315 for RPMs, and it's because the blank is out of balance. So
That's like a big party.
and you're okay peeping down in there. I think I'm going to be all right though. It helps to be able to see around corners. Starting to get just a little bit of give there. A little more. And that's that.
Oh,
So trim the center a little bit, will ya? They say that's where my cracks are gonna hit, the center of that bowl there. Yeah, just trim that out a little bit.
Oh, yeah, each of these I'll smooth up, especially the big one and the bottom. Some of these guys, you can see how this one sort of dented the bottom.
Yeah.
And so I didn't readjust enough, but I think I left you enough. You stay put there now. Yeah, you've got enough to get a bottom there. So just put that in wet shavings on the shelf under your bench. And in about a year, I want to see a beautiful Jorgensen bowl out of it.
so someone was asking about putting the tenon on. One thing you can do is use that and center it and bring your tailstock up and put the tenon on right from there. I don't know if you ever done that.
I've tried that, but I just
Didn't
do
like that?
between centers thing. It's a lot quicker. And if this isn't perfectly flat, which as you're taking stuff away from it, the moisture's changing and it's not going to stay flat, then it gets hard to match it up in here. So I played with that and decided that wasn't the approach I wanted to take. But oh, this is
thick.
Oh yeah, this is thick. I left you some stuff to play with. There's one thing that you need to take into account. See this check right here?
Yeah, yeah.
That's going to lower.